it's Laura Helen, 831 Designs, back again. This time we have got it working. It is going to be an incredible interview. This is one for parents worldwide, especially US. This could be genuine life-saving stuff. I'm super excited to have our guest on today. Super excited. So I'm just going to hop on and invite him on. Okay, so James will be with us any second now. Yay. So James is an incredible author. If you are looking to be an author in 2019, enter our book competition above. It's going to be incredible. We have exceptional prizes, our full book deals, and then full book coaching programs and idea to author coaching programs. It's going to be super excellent. Yay! It seemed to be dark all of a sudden. So I'm just going to wait for James to hop on here. Just make sure I've tagged him. Here we go. James. This is a super awesome book, a must read for all parents. It's so brilliant. There we go. Tagged and invited, so now we're just waiting for James. Hi Nora, hope all is good with you. Hey! So we're just waiting for our author to come and connect. I'm super excited with this one. You know, any parents out there, families, get them on this one. It's going to be an important one. Literally could be life-saving situations that this guy covers in his book. And he's also going to do an up-to-date one, hopefully in 2019. So it's super exciting stuff. Incredible author, incredible heart. This is a really exciting book, and I'm really excited to get this author on and share. Hence I'm doing two tonight. The first one we had technical difficulties, which was super fun, and here he is now. I can bring him on camera. Yay, look at this. It's going to be awesome. Okay, add in. Are we ready? Which side of the screen am I going to be on? This one. Hey, we have James.
Thank you so much.
We did it.
We did it.
No worries at all. So James, tell everyone who you are and what is your book.
Wonderful. Laura, thank you so much for your patience today and working with me. James A. DeMeo, I'm the author of What's Your Plan? It's a step-by-step guide to keep your family safe during emergency situations. I wrote the book last November. It's designed for families. It's user-friendly. It's tangible. It's something families can use time and time again to prepare themselves when they're out in public spaces. As an example, they could be taking in, a sporting event, a place of worship, obviously the mall during the holiday shopping season. They could be working out at their local fitness center, wherever they find themselves, families find themselves, to have kind of a pre-planned response on what they would do if they were faced with some type of a challenge, whether that be an active shooter, active assailant, some type of workplace violence scenario, the fires we saw out in California, obviously. But everyone has asked me, James, what are your thoughts about writing another book? And certainly since last November, there's definitely, unfortunately, enough material, right, for another book based on the challenges. So again, I wrote it last year based on something my son Aiden said to me when the lights went out in the mall. Of course, everyone was looking down at their smartphones. The study showed that on average, 11 hours a day, most adults are looking down at their smartphones. So based on something my son said to me, we took a ride home that evening and started to have a conversation with our family on what we would do if we were faced with some type of a tragic situation. And that was really the impetus for me to write the book. And since then, working with media leaders like yourself and, traveling to Las Vegas and New York City. I'm based here in Raleigh. I've been on television in Charlotte, and just trying to get the message out to an even larger audience about knowing what to do when you're faced again with something that's, unthinkable, unimaginable.
Yeah, because people never think it's going to happen to them, do they?
Exactly.
I'm super excited, like I said before I brought you on, I'm super excited about this book and this message, because people see the book, What's Your Plan? They don't necessarily know how awesome the book is. We're a full-time traveling family, so we are totally aware of all this stuff because it's so there and apparent because we're traveling place to place. But all these families that are settled and they have their routines, for something crazy to happen, disrupt the pattern, to have a plan is literally a lifesaver. So I absolutely love, love, love what you're bringing to the table. Do you have any incredible examples you can give of people that have got in connection with you with regards to making a plan and stories and
Well, I think certainly since the book came out last November, just having conversations, with people, friends, family, they're starting to think more about, how to get into spaces, how to get out. People say to me, James, time and time again, I'm thinking more about your book. So it's only 82 pages long. Again, it's very easy to read. And the idea being that I wanted to write a book that was less than 100 pages, just so people had the time to kind of focus, put their phones down, share the information around the family table. As an example, if you're going to a sporting event, you have your 8-year-old son or daughter read chapter 1 about sporting venues, your place of worship. Maybe your 9-year-old daughter, read, some of these strategies on creating a plan. And what's nice is that at the end of each chapter, there's an exercise action list, there's a glossary, and it's something that you can use time and time again. Certainly, just having the opportunity to connect with you. Here we are, 13 months later, we've become a bestseller, but the message is bigger than myself. It's a collaboration of everybody working together to get past the fear factor, because I think that's when people get themselves in trouble, but they don't have a pre-planned response. The FBI stats last year, 2017, talk about the first 10 to 15 minutes in an active shooter situation when most of it is over with. Well, fast forward the clock 13 months, now we're talking about 7 to 9 minutes, where most of the bad stuff is over before the good guys get there. And some of my good friends are retired FBI agents, very, very smart people. They talk about motive. Motive is very, very important to understand, but usually when we're talking about motive, that means, that the unthinkable has already happened and people are gone. They're no longer with us. So when we look at Parkland, we look at Las Vegas, we look at Pittsburgh. This morning in Singapore, there was some kind of explosion I saw, on Twitter. During the holiday season, Christmas and New Year's, we have to be mindful with our families when we're out in these public places that we've already created a plan. We have a code word. We know what we're going to do. We're going to meet at our local Starbucks, or we're going to meet back at the car. Law enforcement is doing the very best that they can, but we look at the stats here in the United States. There's a 60% downward spiral, if you will, in recruitment for law enforcement. So it's a very, very difficult job. It's very stressful. The officers do the best they can with the resources they have, but see something, say something, run, hide, fight, but they're really, really entrusting the public to bring their A game with them when they're out in public. So again, I'm talking about, kind of a pre-planned awareness up to the point of contact and doing what you can to best survive, unthinkable situation as law enforcement is responding to your location. And I always say, follow law enforcement's lead and guidance. But ultimately we saw, in the Pulse in Orlando, Florida, unfortunately people met their demise because they were waiting for the good guys to get there. And I'm talking about families getting out in front. I always talk about lead from the front, lead without fear. Education and knowledge are the antidote to fear, and fear is simply not an option during these difficult, trying times. So again, I've been in the security industry for 28 years, but I send my 2 children out into the same world that the readers and the viewers send their children out to. So if we can get past the fear factor, if we can share information, if we can look around us, whether we're in a movie theater, if someone next to us appears to be having a bad day, take it upon yourself to let somebody know in a position of authority that someone around you may be having, in fact, a bad day. Don't just suppose or presume that it's somebody else's responsibility to do that. And if you can take that upon yourself, share the information, get past the fear factor, again, it places you in a much better position to deal with these types of challenges that we're seeing on a daily basis.
I think it's so incredibly powerful. And what I hadn't mentioned is how James breaks down each chapter to different events or different places you could be and how to handle different places, different situations. As a parent, you're the leader of your family. Like, law enforcement, all this stuff is great, but at that time, in that moment, you're going to wish you read the book, so you have that plan, so you can protect those you love most that are there and right then. I think this is one of these kind of must reads for every household. It can literally be the difference between life and death. And if it could just be the fact of reading the book and having a plan, as a parent, like, it absolutely, when you told me what your book was about, I'm totally sold. I'm like, okay, we have to get this out there. We have to, like, reach more people. like I said, as a parent, I'm very over the top. We travel a lot, so we have all this stuff in place for different, and we go to big major events where there's like 10,000 people in a room and all this crazy stuff. So we have all this stuff just because we live it so frequently. But I think for people that it's their everyday thing, they're in a routine, they do go to the mall every Saturday. For something to happen would be so shocking and so out of their comfort zone. To have a plan that they've read and spoke about a few times that comes up as instant backup, I think would just be such a magic and such a gift for those families.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Again, my plan, my family's plan may be different than yours, but you've already had that conversation. So it's not a reactive kind of situation, it's more proactive, right? And I think if we can get just everyday moms and dads and families to be more, take a more proactive role in their own personal safety and awareness, again, I think it's a good position for us to be in. Situations do change. I mean, someone pulls the fire alarm, then there's an active shooter, then there's a bomb. There could be a series of 2 or 3 successive events within a short amount of time. But you've already placed yourself in a very good position because you've already talked about, well, you took a visual, notice of how you got into that mall, where your vehicle's parked. Your cell phones are fully charged. You know where obviously how to get back to your vehicle. If you're separated, you've already created a special code word for your family, a special meeting place that you'll make your way back to, as law enforcement is responding to that location. If you do all that in advance, why not be in a position of strength by getting out in front of the challenges? So again, we look at the stats, we look at 7 to 9 minutes, we talk about, the copycat scenario. All right, we're going to apply some research and data to those 13 days that follow an active shooter situation and the mass media exposure. Does that increase the likelihood of someone else saying, hey, listen, I'm going to do this, one more person, a body count, one more, because, I'm disenfranchised or no one's paying attention to me, and they want attention for all the wrong reasons. We have to look at, it's called the contagion effect. Yeah. We have to look at the media's, again, they're trying to do the best that they can, to get the message out. So we want to be mindful. We tell our children when they're in school to share information with their principals, their assistant principals, their school resource officers, to show a position of leadership. You're not snitching, you're not, telling on anyone. You need to come forward and share the information. We saw down in Parkland, it was a colossal failure from the top down, bottom up. The students have moved forward now. And we've got to find that balance between, making schools safer, but not creating police zones, right? We don't want the children to be traumatized where they feel like they're in a police zone. And that's what the educators talk about. The educators don't want to carry guns. It's not what they signed up for. They want highly trained, ex-military, law enforcement, retired law enforcement, security professionals who work in that space, that know how to deal with the children, can talk to them, can, again, it's a two-way communication, but we want to look at, how we can look for signs of bullying. And there's a thing called mapping where we kind of use data to see, and it's something I'm learning more about, where these incidents occurred. Military families, as they move around the United States, the children are in maybe 3 or 4 different middle schools over 2 or 3 years. So we want to have kind of a liaison committee in the schools to help those children transition, to the new schools that they're at. So again, we've got our work cut out for us. Christmas is coming, New Year's. The threats are there. It's not to scare anyone. It's to empower. That's the reason why I wrote this book. I created a very strong team. I have a publisher in Plano, Texas. I, hired a ghostwriter who helped me organize my thoughts. But again, your coordination of efforts with me today, Facebook, Instagram, social media platforms, me just trying to get out and work with folks, no matter where you are. Again, it could be higher education, it could be places of worship, it could be malls, it could be anyone that's willing to, again, bring their A+ game day in and day out, with their families to do what they can to best survive these types of challenges. Again, I think it's a good situation for all of us to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And in Europe, I don't think people realise quite how different the American schools are, because here it's a big issue in London with knife crimes, but in comparison to the US, I remember we were doing a road trip across the US, and literally at least once a month we were hearing about shootings in schools and all these crazy events and scenarios happening across the US, which we weren't so aware of. We'd hear about little bits and pieces in Europe, but not to the extent we did when we were in the US. And to see how many school shootings there were and how many incidents there were in the US while we were there, it just all of a sudden became really apparent. And now our business is quite global. So to, like, one of our authors, their kids were in just wrong place, wrong time near a drive-by shooting, and the world's getting smaller because of this brilliant internet. So all of a sudden we've gone from that stuff's kind of happening over there to it's become very apparent, and you know someone who knows someone, and it's such a, this was a crazy threat you wouldn't kind of believe 10-20 years ago, and now it's a real issue people face daily, and they never think it can be them. So this empowering book to just make them feel like they can bring, like you say, they can bring their A game. They can have that plan. They've had the conversation, so people aren't stuck the rabbit in the headlights kind of pattern. It's brilliantly empowering for parents. I'm so excited that you've brought this out, and you're going to bring out an even stronger, more relevant one to more recent events. I think it's incredible. I'd love to get in touch with you again when you release your next one and just help you keep sharing this message, because I think it's brilliant to have an empowering, kind of positive way to help people instead of, like you say, the fear factor of, there's times when people don't even want to go to the main towns, the main cities, to sports events and all this, where they're literally put off because of these scenarios. And for you to be empowering families like this, it's so incredible.
Yeah, no, I caught to be empowered by it, which is wonderful. And again, that is the goal, right, of any terrorist organization, is to create fear, to instill fear. And so, as a thought leader, one of the things that I really pride myself on is to, not instill fear, but to empower. So again, no one really wants to think that the unimaginable is happening. We look in Paris at the soccer match. They thought it was fireworks, which is a cause of celebration in Europe. With Jason Aldean and the Harvest 91 concert, he was on the stage. They thought it was something with the speaker system, in Las Vegas. We call that in the security industry a black swan event, which is completely unprecedented. 32 floors up into confined space. And ultimately, we have a shooter that so many months later, we still can't figure out what his motive was. But, he did a lot of reconnaissance. He did a lot of planning. But we need families, when they're in hotels, when they're in public places, if something or someone looks out of the ordinary, they need to let someone know. They need to let someone know in a timely manner. And that's the key. So again, I can't do this without you. It's an honor to work with you. I'm a parent. I have 2 children. I have a wife. I have a family. For me, doing this 28 years later, the aftermath of 9/11, I worked out with my police department. I'm just a messenger. I'm part of, hopefully what will eventually be a solution. Again, my book is not the end all be all. I'm smart enough to realize that, but it helps part of, closing the gap. They call that in the threat continuum, right? So, in the States, people talk about gun control and mental health and background checks. But in Europe, we're seeing, right, they're using vehicles, they're using knives. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a gun. If someone wants to create some type of destructive scenario, they can use a drone with some kind of chemical or radiological agent, or it's just the fear factor of, being in that space. So again, severe weather, chemical agents, walking into subway, mass transportation hubs, very, very concerning, because in the security industry, we call that a choke point or a bottleneck. So when you're walking into those spaces, that's when potential crowd crushes can happen. And, you're in a concert. It doesn't have to be, at Wembley Stadium. It could be in a small, mid-size, concert venue where you're located, or in the UK. And, when you're inside listening to the performers, do you know where the exits are? If there was a fire, is there only one way out? Thousand Oaks and Las Vegas, some of those folks were in both of those situations. On a personal note, my wife's girlfriend was in the Las Vegas shooting, and she almost died. By the grace of God, a good Samaritan said, jump in the back of my truck, got her out of there. She has my book. She can't get past chapter 1 because she has some post-traumatic stress. So we can't forget about the families and the victims who have fallen prey to these tragedies. They need our help. It's kind of a lost community that we can't forget about. But, we talk about lessons learned, we talk about best practices. But again, if I tell you that, not only is law enforcement much more dangerous now than when I retired in 2011, we're getting a recruitment problem here in the United States where a lot of people don't want to go into it. And that's very, very concerning. Yeah. So if the police can only do the best that they can, we need the public to do even better for themselves by being more aware, by being more out in front, by being more empowered, by knowing what to do, by creating a pre-planned response, by, looking around to the world around them. If they come across an agitated person, to treat that person with dignity and respect, and to try to keep that person calm to the best of their abilities. But ultimately, run, hide, fight, see something, say something, know how to get into a space, know how to get out of a space, and again, get out in front and be more proactive than reactive. Again, that's a great position to be in.
I love it. I absolutely love it, because if nothing else, your book starts that conversation just to make people aware and have their families discuss the what ifs. So I think that's such an empowering thing and things to look out for, and it's an awesome guide, and it starts that conversation to make families, just to bring that to the table and have that as a discussion. It's brilliant. I can just keep saying the same thing. So I think it's awesome and brilliant, and I'm going to share this everywhere. I know that parents are going to be watching. I really appreciate your time tonight. Yes, of course. Would you like to add anything else before we end this?
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, I appreciate your patience on the front end, getting us through some technical difficulties. Here's the book. I'm proud to say we've become a bestseller. We are on Amazon. We're on Goodreads. James A. DeMeo, JamesaDemeo.com. Again, I can't do this without your help. I'm just a messenger. This is, beyond me. But, ultimately working with
This is bigger than all of us.
Yeah, it's bigger than all of us. And, so again, I'm trying to just empower, educate, get out in front. That's really the teacher in me. I'm blessed to teach for a major university. I teach for Tulane. I teach the future leaders in event security and risk management. Very, very honored to do that. I taught in the police academy. I really never thought I'd write a book, to be honest with you. But again, when it came from my own son, I always talk about the mouth of babes, but it was really the spark for me to try to really make an impact, to do something, to create some meaningful change in the world. And again, to do this in a collaboration with everyone possible, to just get out in front. So again, I look forward to a continuing growing relationship with one another, with your audience, with my audience, because I always talk about creating value for somebody other than myself first. And that was really why I wrote this book, is because I want it to be something that can be used time and time again, to share information, to empower, to get you out in front, and to know what you're going to do so that you're not fearful. If we can get past the fear, again, that's where the chaos and the confusion come in, but we're empowered. We have that confidence. And I tell people, when you're out in public, smile, look around. 11 hours a day, most adults are looking at their smartphones. So they're really desensitized and not paying attention to the world around them. So look up from your phone, see what you're going to do, and get out in front. And ultimately, again, nothing's 100% guaranteed, but if you're confident and you smile, I always talked about the bad actors, but people that are unscrupulous, if they know that you're looking at them, chances are they're just going to go on to the next person who's not looking at them. So if you look at them and pay attention to what they're doing, they're going to just move about their business, and that's what you want. You smile at them, you maintain eye contact, you've got a description of them. Why would they want to challenge you? Because you already know what they look like. So that's a strength position, being aware, creating your own checklist, looking over the glossary, doing a little practice run with your family, so that if you're faced with that situation, you already know what you're going to do, and again, that's a strength position for each and every one. And, I've been told by many of my peers that, no one's really written a book like this. And that's really a great compliment, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's really sad that we
It
even
is.
have to talk about this. I'd like to turn around and say that these things are not going away. But unfortunately, they continue to happen time and time again, not only throughout the United States, but throughout the world. So, if we share the information, we get out in front, we create our plan. Again, we're not reactive, we're more proactive. It's something that, again, it's good for all of us. And again, I thank you for the opportunity to share some of my work with your audience. And again, I want to wish everybody a happy, safe holiday season. Certainly, Christmas time, holidays, the threats are out there. So remember, when you're in public spaces, just if you learn 2 or 3 things from the conversation today, then we've really accomplished what we wanted to do in terms of empowerment. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What I will do is I will get James to put links in the comments on the videos once we jump off of where you can find his book and find out more information. And I'm going to keep in touch with James so when the second book comes out with even more up-to-date information, we can go crazy and buy that and share that out to all our parents too. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm super excited to have this shared out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Take care.